Welcome to SIIMcast, a podcast brought to you by the Society for Imaging Informatics in Medicine.
Greetings, SIIMcast listeners. On this episode, we've had the pleasure of sitting down with 4 students representing a team from Marquette University that won the SIIM Hackathon 2023 award. And the 4 students are Paige Harrill, who is a junior at Marquette University studying biocomputing. This summer, she's going to be an intern for GE Healthcare in their Edison program. Last year was her first year both at SIIM and participating in the SIIM Hackathon. We also have Alex Giblin, who is an aspiring biomedical engineering student at Marquette University. He, too, was also new at SIIM last year, at also participating in the hackathon. One cool tangent, Alex runs a podcast. You're going to hear halfway through this episode, he puts a plug for his podcast, so please check out his podcast. We also have Davina Lettau, who is a fifth-year biomedical engineering student at Marquette University, specializing in electrical and computer engineering, while also pursuing a pre-law track. Outside of her academic schedule, Davina is the president of Marquette Society of Women Engineers. She actively volunteers at local middle schools and manages various roles such as bartending and being a teaching assistant. Her passion for advocacy extends to her goal of becoming a defense lawyer, focusing on artificial intelligence laws and juvenile cases. Davina finds joy in traveling, running, baking, and aiming to bridge the realms of technology and justice in her future career. And last but not least, we have Tom O'Sullivan. And Tom is a software and data engineer that has been part of SIIM and participated in hackathons since 2018. His professional background and skills were developed at industries such as energy, finance, security, and primarily focuses on biotech, bioinformatics. Tom currently works with RSNA with backend and data engineering. He works with RSNA on the NIH ARPA-H biodata framework known as MEDRIC. I hope you enjoy our chat with the Marquette students as much as we did. Okay, it's lovely to have you here with us. I want to start by asking Tom the question, how did you find out about SIIM in general and the hackathon specifically?
Yes, very serendipitous. I was working in a lab at Marquette University. It was an AI lab focused on energy predictions for utilities all across the world and the Department of Energy. And so I was just focused on that. I was running my own team. I felt like I had my own good little thing going. And then one day we got a day off of work because the CEO's old friend wanted to give a presentation. And it ended up being Terry Sippel Schmidt. And she's a lovely, very capable woman with a very prestigious background. And she's the godmother of bioinformatics. So she showed up and asked all these techies to go to DC to join a hackathon in some field we knew nothing about and learn as much as we could in the span of like 2 weeks. So I heard I got a free vacation and right away I was signed up to go. So me and some friends that ran the lab ended up going. And I think that was like, you can't really look back at your life, especially like this agency, like many things that change your life. But for sure, Terry just popping in one day and then putting her trust and faith in us and all of her enthusiasm is really what I can say, was a pivotal moment for me. And then ever since, I've been trying to work with Terry and learn from her what I can and trying to push forward and apply, I think, skills that you kind of learn if you are up to industry standards in tech and engineering in general and apply it towards the healthcare field, which is probably just due to red tape held a little bit back. So I think it was just like a very clear sign of opportunity. And I owe everything to Terry. So that got me to the hackathon and I've kind of been here ever since.
How about the second generation among us here? I want to hear from one of you about your experience.
Sure. So Terry and I actually met my freshman year of college. I was in Society of Women Engineers, and I was assigned to her. She was my professional mentor. So basically, I had a lot of meetings with her, and she told me about everything that she's involved in, and it all sounded really interesting. And then one day, I actually got lunch with her and Tom. And they kind of explained the hackathon to me and how it worked. And I was just really interested in it. So then I was given the opportunity to go, which it was actually my first ever conference. So that was really cool. And I got to just learn a lot about the field. It was also my first hackathon. So lots of firsts for me. And it just showed me like the value of staying involved in the scientific community. I owe everything to Terry.
Yeah, I'm Alex. I was introduced to SIIM through Terry as well. And actually, my friend Davina, who is also on this call and was a part of our team, was partially that link between that meeting. And I was kind of at a point where in my academic career, I was figuring out where I wanted to pursue an interest more and feel out where I kind of felt the most comfortable with working and things that piqued my interest. And I was familiar with imaging processes and not necessarily the technology and some of the actual innovations that are coming into the space right now. And so when I heard about the opportunity for the SIIM Hackathon and SIIM in general, it really piqued my interest. And I saw it as a great place to just kind of uncover what the space has for me, the informatics and imaging space itself. And there's no better place to do that than at the Society of Informatics and Imaging in Medicine conference every year. So, and to be a part of this hackathon and, learn so much in such a short amount of time, I really think this was such a beneficial and impactful opportunity that without Terry and without the connections I've made through school and the friends I've made, I don't think I really would have uncovered this and known that I was so interested in this field.
That's really cool to hear. I like that because it touches on where I was going to go a little next, and that you ran into a lot of, we'll call it luck or fortune, running into Terry, and kind of that sets a trajectory that maybe you weren't going to go previously. So very inspiring and incredible to hear. I guess as you were approaching this opportunity of going into the hackathon, you have Terry by your side, so you're well equipped with a very well seasoned expert. Tell us a bit about the project. Let's set the table for what was being done and how you were kind of mapping out what was going to be accomplished and so on.
So with that, we have to give credit to Terry again. I think that's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this. So we were kind of tossing around different ideas and such, and kind of areas within the radiology field that maybe had unmet needs and such. And with that, we kind of settled on this IHE workflow on FHIR with CDS hooks implementation. And with that, it was something new for all of us. There were a lot of things that at first just looked like letters on the paper. We were kind of unfamiliar with it, but digging deeper into it, we did kind of see this need to allow more information to be able to be disseminated from clinicians and the radiologists actually looking through these scans. And so we wanted to kind of free up and streamline this radiological work process and accessing information.
So Terry gave us different project options based on her experiences within the field. So she talked about how she had a friend who was actually a radiologist, and our project was something that they definitely saw a need for and wanted to implement. So she mentioned that a huge project they had was just the problem they had was just a lack of communication between the clinicians and the radiologists. And Terry was great. She got up on a whiteboard for us and mapped out the entire workflow of how things currently work. And then we kind of looked at needs in that area. And we just decided that we thought this would be a great project that would actually make an impact on the field, especially considering we had Terry's friend who had that experience.
I would like to add one more thing. Just from the perspective of Terry, I think one of the big challenges that she likes to throw upon us is learning as much as possible in such a short time as possible. So for this project specifically, they weren't learning one thing. They happened to be learning 4 or 5 different very relevant technical skills at an advanced level in a scary short amount of time. So the fact that they did as well as they did, dealing with especially as many acronyms as we had to just keep throwing at them. I think we were like throwing flashcards at them and myself. Whenever I don't know something, I just ask Terry, and then people sound like I did. But yeah, no. So really, it was just how much can we do, and how big of a challenge do we think that we could, take a bite out of? And those guys, blew it away.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, especially with the wide array of technical experience that the group had and varying levels of knowledge. And it was definitely a satisfying feat to win the 2023 SIIM Hackathon. But at the same time, I think it's, for those listening, it's a great story to kind of say that they shouldn't be afraid to take some time out and attend some of these events, because without it, I never would have been exposed to the HL7 FHIR and the actual accessing of that data and seeing how that lays out. And those are real and tangible experiences that, I don't know, I wouldn't have gained without the SIIM community giving me the opportunity to access that and be able to look at that information and work with it. So I think it was overall just a great opportunity. And those listening definitely should attend if they get the opportunity to.
Thank you all for that. And I should also clarify something, because I made a reference earlier about the second generation and the first generation. So just for clarity, Tom here has actually participated. If I recall correctly, Tom, was the 2019 SIIM Hackathon, right?
I want to say it was the 2018.
I'm probably getting my years mixed, but yes. So we've had you once before at the hackathon when you were a student, and then of course you participated again in 2023 along with the other group here. So Alex, Paige, and Davina. So hence the two generations of hackathoners. I know, Alex, you quickly kind of alluded to this, but I'm actually curious to ask you and the rest of the team here about your experience learning FHIR and DICOM for the first time. Tell us a little bit more about it. Tell us about all the nuances of healthcare that, somebody like Jason and I, we've been around for a while, and we probably don't appreciate these things. But for somebody with fresh set of eyes, what was this like?
I would say at first it seemed very daunting. I have more of a electronics interest at first. I did. That was where more so my skill set lied, with the additional software programming experience that I have. But I think that from a unknown perspective, that the learning of FHIR and DICOM, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And especially with how FHIR allows it all to be kind of condensed into a very readable format and easily accessible format once you do call from it. And it only takes a few lines of code in all reality to access it. And as long as you have a kind of understanding of what you want to find and how you want to find it, then it's really not that difficult, and it isn't a really scary thing at all. And I don't have too much to say about the DICOM itself, because I personally, for this project, I didn't work with them too much. But Paige or anybody else have anything to say about those?
Yeah, I just want to, again, for the 100th time, credit Terry, because she actually sent us like a series of YouTube videos to watch before the hackathon. So that helped us to really just familiarize ourselves, and then also not get too, I guess, sidetracked on things that weren't actually going to be relevant for us to know. So that was really helpful in my, I guess, learning and just like figuring everything out so I wasn't confusing myself.
I just wanted to add more of like, I guess like the logistical side of it as well, because I think, once you hear the words FHIR and DICOM, like when I first heard them, I had no idea what I was looking at. I had no idea what it meant. And Terry, again, credit to her. I know I haven't spoken yet, but she is a phenomenal human being. And she has done a great job just being a coach and a mentor on like anything you could possibly need help of, like even outside of SIIM. But the process itself, I would say, was actually really overwhelming, and not necessarily because of the concepts or because of the workload, but from a logistical standpoint, like I said, more just scheduling and getting everyone together and figuring out times that like worked for everyone, especially going into the summer. We all were like up to different things, and we all were on completely different time zones sometimes. So it was really difficult actually to just kind of get everyone united so that we could ask questions and kind of start working on the thoughts that we have about the project. And I think that's like something that like a lot of people kind of forgot about because it's been almost a year now. But I'm really excited to kind of see that happen again and see what happens and how we can all meet up and have all of our brains put back together. But it was kind of a difficult process getting people in the same room at first. I mean, I think we had like half the team at one point, like remote, and then like half the team in person. And Terry was trying to draw on boards and everything. And it was a very comical but rewarding experience.
Thank you for that. I appreciate those thoughts. So it's interesting. So you have to learn FHIR and DICOM and those concepts around standards. Did you find that your understanding of radiology workflow improved? Sometimes I find you can learn things in a very myopic focus. So you don't necessarily have to understand the workflow, but you've achieved a high degree of success of understanding the standards themselves. Did you come across the workflow itself, or any thoughts on that as far as your understanding went?
Well, as I previously mentioned, it was really helpful for at least me when Terry went up on a whiteboard for us and was kind of drawing out how everything worked and also pointing out any issues within that, because I did not know anything about the radiology workflow or how hospital systems worked. Like, this was all brand new information to me. So it was just really interesting. And even when she would point out issues, like, for example, how the clinicians and the radiologists couldn't communicate easily, I was like, well, why can't they communicate easily? Like, that seems like something that should have already been dealt with. So I just thought that it was really interesting. And yeah, it definitely was a lot to learn both how hospital systems and that data works, along with the different standards and FHIR and DICOM all at the same time.
Yeah, it was definitely having no understanding of it all. And as we keep mentioning this, the first meeting when we broke it all down, it was overwhelming to say the least. And especially seeing the different levels of FHIR itself that were used throughout the different systems. And then also learning how information wasn't necessarily being disseminated from the clinicians to the radiologists themselves. And also learning more about the radiology process and how somebody is actually sitting there viewing those scans one by one and speaking and transcribing what they see into it and kind of learning about how actually it is done. I thought that was very interesting, and it definitely helps me going forward, especially when maybe I'm faced with more problems within this space. Having that little back end understanding will, I think, for sure help me come up with better decisions and solutions that may solve problems going forward for the radiology space. So I think it was neat to learn about the process. And I think how you were mentioning, kind of looking at the workflow of it all, kind of will give a different perspective and maybe allow someone to understand it from a different light, or maybe understand it faster than trying to pick apart each individual piece from a more technical standpoint.
If I could add on here, I know for the average SIIM listener, it might seem strange we keep talking about this person, Terry, but if you knew her, you understand why it's worth it. One thing that she is a master of for teaching us, especially how actual healthcare workflow works, is that she's a very problem-oriented individual, and she keeps us very on track in terms of that. So Paige actually mentioned earlier that Terry's fantastic at telling us what we don't need to know. We will define the problem, and as soon as we start to find the edge cases, the rabbit holes, the things that are not worth our time, we would basically be immediately cut off and told what to focus on. And just by focusing on the steps that you need to do in order to achieve that goal of solving the problem for this specific test case of a workflow, you actually just sort of learn how radiology workflows as like a side effect just by, her problem solving method. And I think that like very clearly just accelerated all of us over such a short time. So I think that was for sure one of the biggest benefits that we had.
We'd like to mention that this episode has been sponsored by Terry Sippel Schmidt. It is very nice though, because she is such a great leader in this space. I owe a lot that I've learned to her, so it's nice hearing this across the board. So I think this goes without saying, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about this, or you folks have to say about this. Is it sounds like you've on a path now. Your career path is kind of in healthcare IT and imaging, it sounds like specifically. So would we see you back at SIIM again? And do you have a future SIIM hackathon that you might be thinking about for the future?
Yes, actually. I think that I don't know about Tom, but Davina, Alex, and I are all going to be at SIIM this summer, and we are also participating in the hackathon. So I'm very excited, especially after everything we learned last year. I feel like this year will be a little bit less overwhelming because it'll be less new information and more review and building on those concepts. So very excited and very grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, I can't wait, especially looking back on it now and speaking with both of you. It's bringing back memories of my time there, and I'm so excited to be back, and especially looking forward to the late nights and getting the work done to be able to present on the last day for the hackathon. I think I keep mentioning it's a great opportunity, and I keep talking so highly of it because that's how I truly feel about it. And the people there were so informative, and anybody would answer questions if I had any, and especially when working through the process itself, I thought it was the collaboration within one team, but also the collaboration amongst other teams, that I thought that kind of camaraderie and everybody still working together was awesome. And the overall community and feel there was great. And I'm looking forward to attending this summer.
I also just wanted to third that like, I think we're all going back and it's amazing. I think we're also going back with a bigger group of students, which I know Terry is ecstatic about. I'm ecstatic about. We're all very excited about all of it. And I think exactly what Alex said, everyone at SIIM has just been amazing. And it's really exciting to think about just seeing them all again and reuniting with everybody. SIIM has been like a great platform and just like a community to kind of go to and to network with and to ask questions to. And some of the people that are going this year have been like my previous students that I've TA'd. So it's really cool to kind of see them all grow up and like take advantage of the same opportunities that I've been and have had the opportunity to do. So it'll be exciting.
This is absolutely awesome. I am super excited to hear about the positive sentiments that you all have of the SIIM community. I mean, I was worried because, Jason and I, we get it, but we drink the Kool-Aid. You're all pretty fresh. So the fact that you see it probably means we're onto something. This is really, really exciting. And I will say, as somebody who's deeply involved in the hackathon, I cannot wait to see each and every one of you at this year's hackathon. But hey, even if you're just at a future SIIM meeting, even if you don't have time for the hackathon, it's still going to be really nice to see you one way or another. Now, I do want to ask a slightly different question in this case. So we always talk about how SIIM gives free memberships to the students. I'm curious if you, and I want to hear from each one of you here, have capitalized on that free membership in general, and if you've actually found it valuable. Have you attended things like webinars or any other sessions that made your membership useful?
I can kind of speak on this one because I know that part of the membership is you get your weekly emails. Like they just send you so many updates about what's happening in the imaging field right now. I've definitely taken advantage of that. I haven't seen any of the recordings, but I have been like reading articles that they send out. I keep in the loop with what's going on. I think it's also really nice to get more students in to the membership because then they can also stay on top of it. And like we now have more knowledge. Like I have more knowledge just about all of the imaging community than I did last year. So I definitely have taken advantage of it. It's a field that I did not think I would be interested at all in. And I have found like a new just like entire interest in it and belonging in this community. So I definitely think it's beneficial for any student, especially just take advantage of what is free and the opportunities you can get while you're young. That's a huge thing I don't think enough college kids take advantage of, is that we are college kids and there's a lot of opportunities out there that people want to emerge us with just because there is so much to learn and we are the future. So yeah.
Yeah, I will second Davina. I think that the emails are super helpful, along with just the different articles, the webinars, all the events that you guys host, especially because, at least in my experience, like my classes don't touch on anything that the SIIM stuff is touching on. Like we mostly just focus on the fundamentals, and I don't feel like I am super up to date in like the current events in the biomedical community, let alone the imaging community. So just having that second resource, especially when it's free, has been great. And I feel like it's honestly even very impressive, like career-wise, to know these things because not many college students do, like Davina said.
I'll jump in on this one. I mean, SIIM has been a huge help to me, and particularly Mohammed, the guy who's sucking up to the podcast host, but he's basically a mentor at this point. I really owe him a lot. He's very supportive and very, very motivating for pushing me forward. Because of him, I'm actually now on the SIIM Hackathon subcommittee. So I like to participate in that when I can. And I will actually be on one of the webinars next week, which I've never done before. So that's not daunting at all. But I trust Mohammed, so I'm looking forward to that. And I think SIIM has, overall been very helpful. Just in terms of the membership, like you guys said, the emails, I think, are always very informative. I like to stay up to date with, the next turn in our industry. And I think SIIM's really good at that. And I can tell even just from the meetings that they're, ambitious to find what's next. And I appreciate that. One thing I always really appreciate, I've never been in person, but I always really like the conference on machine intelligence and medical imaging. I think that's a resource that SIIM provides that is right up, my alley of interest as well. And I think that should get a little bit more attention too. So I can honestly say that everything I've done since I've become a part of SIIM has been beneficial, and I can recommend it more.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if as a student, do you attend the hackathon for free and the conference?
Yeah, I believe you get into the conference for free as well.
So, I mean, I would say that's probably the biggest benefit of being a SIIM member is this reoccurring community and space that offers so much. And by being a member, you can be exposed to so many things through the webinars, through certifications, and just attending the hackathon itself and kind of letting that be a space where you can get your own ideas out there or work on some of the problems that are being presented by the SIIM community itself. I think it was great meeting those people that I did at the conference, and I was able to connect with them, and I still read up on some of the things that they are putting out into the space. And I think without the opportunity that SIIM has provided, I definitely wouldn't have been exposed to so many different areas and kind of the interesting parts of the imaging field itself and the informatics space. I didn't really know that informatics was anything but crunching numbers. I didn't realize that kind of was more in regards to the workflow process. And so I think, without SIIM, some of those little things are kind of amazing. You have done so much, and I can't say more for it.
Follow up to what Alex said real quick, if I can. I'm a nerd. I like nerd things. So I have been to conferences for other, technical industry and events and stuff. And I can honestly say SIIM is weirdly fun, which I can't really say is true for a lot of other, of the high tech conferences and other industries out there. I mean, it's largely, of course, the people. Also, just the culture is really good. So I think that it's worth going to just because you do learn a lot, but also you have a really beneficial and rewarding time.
I love the super positive sentiment that you all have about this. And again, it's good to know that it's not just, people like Jason and I who are big believers in the SIIM community. Now, that being said, I'll also add one more thing. I will say Terry has been on the record multiple times saying that her students are her retirement policy. I'm sure you've probably heard her say that before. I will tell you, I think that's generally also true for the SIIM community, that we're also very happy to see young people like you come in, get involved, and see you kind of rise through the ranks to be essentially the next generation in charge of this. So, and this is a really good segue into question number 8. I'm going to start with Tom indirectly, right? Because I know that Tom actually went into medical imaging informatics after he graduated. And I cannot tell you how happy I was when I ran into him at a different conference and realized that he'd stayed in the domain and he was working on some pretty cool stuff. So, Tom, I want to hear from you on this one, and then I want to hear from everybody else as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, so as we talked about it, I went to the conference, I met Terry, and I met you, and everyone else. I can probably list a bunch of names of people that had a huge impact on me. but just aligning my interests with challenges that I saw as, very worth pursuing and problems I'd like to have a part in solving. Going into medical imaging informatics seemed like a very clear opportunity. So I've been very grateful to work with RSNA on primarily the MIDRIC team, which is the medical imaging data. It's part of the NIH ARPA-H Biodata Fabric, I think. A lot of acronyms in there, but really interesting challenges that I think I would never have even been aware of if it wasn't for this. And not just that, but also like the tool set, the knowledge, and the network to actually approach these problems. And when I have a weird glitch or technical error, I know some random person across the world that I can email and say, hey, can you help me debug this? Or if I have like a strategic problem that we want to solve and we want like a clinical expert or something, like I now know that I have a good base to fall back on, and it's definitely due to this.
So I'm still kind of deciding on what my plans are for after graduation. I do have an interest in kind of continuing my career in the imaging informatics field. But however, I think I may want to potentially work on the actual imaging systems themselves. But I do think that to be able to make one, you still need to understand the other part of it as well. To be kind of a truly well-rounded engineer, you need to know the software and the hardware aspect of things to kind of really understand where a problem may be occurring, whether it's in software or you don't have the right voltage flowing through and you have too large of a resistor or something like that. I think they're both very crucial parts. And so I think with SIIM exposing me to kind of what is out there and what isn't out there, it's definitely been able to help me kind of gear my career search and job search itself into kind of the informatics and imaging space itself.
I still have another year before I graduate. I'm just a junior, but I do plan on being somewhere in the medical imaging informatics space. Imaging is actually what got me interested in biomedical engineering just as a whole. So this was honestly the perfect opportunity for me. I have been interning with GE Healthcare. I interned there last summer. I'm going back this summer. So hopefully we'll see that things work out with that. But even just going to SIIM was great because I got to talk to people at GE about it. Like, for example, I got to meet with some of the engineers working on their Edison platform, and they're doing the AI for the image detection. So that was really cool that even just being at SIIM like allowed me to connect back to that aspect. And I would love to work on something like that in the future.
I think I'm the only one here that unfortunately is not going to pursue medical imaging. Actually, my goal is I'm in the process of it, applying to law school, but I do plan to kind of focus on artificial intelligence law and machine learning law. I really want to get into, there's not a lot of laws currently out there relating to artificial intelligence, so it would be really cool to be at the front end of that, where I get to help, have a say in some of those laws. And I think my engineering background is going to be really resourceful because I understand artificial intelligence a lot more than I think people who usually go to law school do. So I kind of plan to combine those two and help make an impact on the laws, which is going to have a result on the medical imaging and informatics area, a huge amount, because I know there are not enough people out there advocating for what a lot of people might want the laws to be. So that's kind of my plan. Yeah.
All very inspiring. Thank you very much. So you are all on a very good trajectory of your future path looks very bright. Would you have any advice that you'd be able to give to others who are earlier on in their career? Any suggestions?
I think we've all said it 100 times, but you really have to take advantage of the opportunities given to you. Like, for example, if I didn't join Society of Women Engineers when I came to Marquette, if I didn't join the mentorship program and meet Terry, I would not be in this position of going to a conference and even getting to do a hackathon and getting to talk about it on this podcast. So I think really just searching for opportunities and meeting as many people as you can, and also continuing those relationships is huge.
I would definitely say, as Paige said, take advantage of opportunities, get a SIIM membership. I think that's a great place to start. If you can, if you're still a student, I mean, that's still early on in your career. Just kind of if something piques your interest, read into it more, see why it piques your interest, follow those kind of tangents in life, because you never know where it will lead you. And for me, it led me to SIIM, actually, and through meeting Terry as well. And you'll never know kind of the people you'll meet along the way and the things you'll learn. And I guess a little shameless plug, my own podcast, Project Rookie, would be a great spot to learn things for those who are early on in your career.
I also just wanted to know, I think it's really important, like, stay humble, be very gracious and grateful for the opportunities that are given to you. I mean, there are reasons to give free opportunities to college kids and to people early in their career, but people don't necessarily have to do that. They choose to do that because they care about the younger generation. And I think that's something that we definitely need to talk about more, is that, you know, especially in the SIIM community, they really care about us. Like, I could feel that energy immediately when we got into that conference hall. It's just, they care about educating us. They care about, you know, making sure that, you know, if you're stressed, are you also all right? And like, is it too much for you? And are you doing well? And like, have a great time. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just being grateful, being humble, and just continuing to kind of be kind throughout the entire process and throughout your early career, and just, you know, be open to anything that people present to you, and understand that there's so much that we have left to learn and that you're going to continue to learn throughout life. You know, my dad is 60 years old. He doesn't maybe take that out. He doesn't like to admit it, but he is 60, and he still tells me, he sends me articles all the time about everything that he's still learning. So we never stop learning. So I think that's the biggest thing, to just kind of accept early on. Yeah.
I always find it interesting at SIIM when you're around some of the like brightest people I've ever been around, and the humility and just this way of kind of being in the room and always, I don't know, just very welcoming. And it's a very nice environment to be able to learn from everyone. And I like all your sentiments. I just want to ask Alex one more time, what was the name of your podcast? Well,
it's
in
Project Rookie. It's available on all streaming services. So yeah, thanks for letting me put a little shameless plug in.
No worries, no worries. Okay, so with all that said, we want to thank each of you very much for all your time today. And we want to spend a very special thank you to Terry. Without her, this would have not happened, obviously. So thanks to everyone, and wish you well, and stay tuned for the next episode of SIIMcast. Goodbye.
SIIMcast has been brought to you by the Society of Imaging Informatics in Medicine. Please visit our website at SIIM.org for more information and educational content, including webinars and an archive of prior episodes. Please follow us on Twitter at SIIM_tweets. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support.